I never thought I'd be one of those guys writing here. You know, the ones you scroll past thinking, damn, glad that's not me. But here I am. For context, I've been married to my wife, S, for almost 8 years. We met in college, built a life together, survived the broke years, bought a house, and honestly, I thought we were solid. Not perfect, but solid. The other key person in this mess is M. He's been my best friend since middle school. We played ball together, went through bad breakups together. Hell, he was the best man at my wedding. He's the guy I always thought of as my brother. If you asked me 6 months ago who I trusted the most outside my family, it would have been him without hesitation. The three of us always hung out a lot, game nights, BBQs, even trips. I thought it was a blessing. My wife and my best friend got along. No awkwardness, no jealousy. Felt like the dream scenario. At least that's what I thought. The first time I felt that gut punch of wait, something isn't right, was so small, so stupid, that I almost gaslit myself out of it. It was a joke. Just a dumb little inside joke. We were all sitting around at my place, just a casual Saturday night. Drinks, cards, the usual. I cracked some lame joke, and S&M looked at each other. Like instantly. That kind of look where two people are sharing something you're not part of. Then they both laughed, not at the joke I made, but at something else. I remember thinking, okay, weird, but whatever. But then it kept happening. Little glances, inside laughs. When I'd get up to grab another beer or go to the bathroom, I'd come back and they'd suddenly be sitting a little farther apart than before, or the conversation would shift like they'd been talking about something they didn't want me hearing. At first, I chalked it up to paranoia. I've always been the guy who tries too hard not to be the jealous type. I wanted to be the husband who could say, yeah, my wife and my best friend get along. Isn't that great? I wanted to trust them both. But then the cracks started turning into holes I couldn't ignore. S became a little sharper with me, almost sarcastic in ways she hadn't been before. She'd roll her eyes at me during group hangouts, but never at M. With him, she was playful, witty, almost glowing. And M, he just started pulling away from me. He used to text me memes, random thoughts, football takes. But slowly, the messages turned into, yeah bro, busy, or left on read. I figured maybe he was just stressed or depressed, but I noticed he never seemed too busy to answer her. One night, I caught her phone lighting up while she was in the shower. Normally I don't snoop, but I glanced over out of habit. It was M. Just his name and a stupid laughing emoji. My stomach twisted, but I told myself, friend's text, it's fine. But then I noticed something else. She'd put her phone face down around me, always, and she'd laugh at texts. Then when I'd ask, what's funny? She'd say, oh nothing, just a dumb meme. But never show me. That was the moment when the nothing started to feel like everything. I'll be honest. Once suspicion creeps in, it's like a disease. It doesn't go away. You start noticing everything. Every glance, every pause, every change in tone. It eats at you until you can't even tell what's real and what's just in your head. I started replaying moments in my brain like a detective reviewing case files. The way she'd light up when M texted. The way he suddenly became too busy to hang out one-on-one with me, but somehow had time when she was involved. Even the way they'd laugh at something I wasn't a part of. It was like I had been pushed out of my own triangle. The turning point came during one of our group hangouts. We were at another friend's place, nothing fancy, just beer, pizza, and a football game on TV. Everyone was chatting, and I was telling some dumb story from college. Out of nowhere, M interrupted me and said to my wife, yeah, like that night at your place, remember? The whole room went quiet for a second. He froze. She froze. Then she burst out laughing, way too loud, like she was trying to cover it up. Oh my God, stop, you're mixing stuff up, she said, shoving his arm. But he didn't laugh. He looked like someone had just yanked the rug out from under him. His face went red. His mouth half open like he was about to say something but thought better of it. I sat there with my beer in hand, pretending to laugh along, but my mind was racing. Her place? My wife hadn't hosted anything without me. At least, I thought she hadn't. Later that night, when we got home, I asked her straight out what he meant. She rolled her eyes like I was the dumbest man alive. Babe, seriously? He was talking about that time when everyone came over while you were working late. You knew about it. Stop being weird. Her tone was so dismissive, so sarcastic, that I almost let it go. But then she added, honestly, you're starting to sound paranoid. If you can't handle me having friends, that's your issue, not mine. And there it was, that flip turning my suspicion into my problem. Gaslighting, but with a smirk. Still, that slip, M's little half-sentence, got lodged in my brain like a splinter. I couldn't stop picking at it. I started noticing the way he'd avoid my eyes when we were all together. The way she'd jump to answer texts that I never saw. That was the moment I stopped being a husband just living his life and started becoming a man quietly investigating the people closest to him. I didn't plan it. I thought I'd keep gathering pieces, play it smart, maybe even catch them red-handed. But betrayal doesn't give you the luxury of patience. It boils inside you until it explodes. It happened at my house of all places. M had come over to watch the game, just like old times. I'd been trying to act normal, testing him, seeing if he'd slip up again. My wife floated around the kitchen, laughing a little too hard at his dumb jokes, topping off his drink without him even asking. That was the moment it hit me. She hadn't refilled mine in weeks. We sat down and I tried to keep it casual, but it was like the words just clawed their way out of my throat. So, I said, staring straight at M, what exactly happened that night at my wife's place when I was working late? You could have heard a pin drop. M froze, beer halfway to his lips. My wife's eyes went wide for half a second before she plastered on that smug, sarcastic mask she wears when she wants to make me feel small. Oh my God! This again? She said, laughing like it was the dumbest question on earth. Are you seriously still on that? You sound insane. But M didn't laugh. He set his beer down carefully, like he was defusing a bomb. He didn't look at me. He didn't look at her. Just stared at the floor, his jaw clenched so tight I thought his teeth might crack. That silence, his silence, told me everything I needed to know. I snapped. Years of trust, brotherhood, marriage, everything. It all combusted in that moment. I stood up so fast the chair skidded back. Don't you and you lie to me, I shouted. I've given both of you everything. And you think I'm too stupid to notice what's happening right in front of me? My wife didn't flinch. She just smirked. That infuriating little smirk, like she had the upper hand. Wow, she said slowly, dripping with sarcasm. Guess the conspiracy theories finally rotted your brain. Congratulations, detective. You cracked the case of two people. Laughing at a joke. I turned to him, hoping, begging he'd finally say something. Anything. Instead, he just muttered, I'm sorry, man. Soft. Broken. That was it. That was the nail in the coffin. Not a denial. Not even an attempt. Just guilt wrapped in silence. And in that second, my marriage and my longest friendship both shattered into pieces I knew I'd never be able to glue back together. The room felt like it shrank down to the size of a coffin. Just me, her smirk, and his silence. I couldn't even believe what I was seeing. My wife, the person who promised to love and respect me, leaning back in her chair with her arms crossed like I was a kid throwing a tantrum. My best friend, the guy who swore up and down he'd have my back until the day we died, staring at the floor like a coward who couldn't even look me in the eye. I remember yelling, no, roaring, sorry? That's all you've got to say? Sorry? My voice cracked, my hands were shaking, and for the first time in my life, I looked at M and didn't see my brother. I saw a stranger who had gutted me. And her? She doubled down. That sarcasm of hers, it came out like poison. Oh wow, what drama. What do you want him to do? Write you a sonnet about how guilty he feels. Maybe he can carve an apology into his chest for you. Would that make you feel better? I lost it. Don't and you mock me, I shouted, slamming my fist on the table. She didn't flinch. She smiled, like she'd won something. That smile nearly broke me more than the cheating itself. Because it wasn't just an affair, it was betrayal with a side of cruelty. It was her telling me she could destroy everything and still act like I was the fool. Meanwhile, M sat there like a ghost, not defending himself, not defending me, not even defending her, just blank. His face was pale, his shoulders hunched, his hands twitching like he wanted to say something but couldn't. He looked like guilt personified, but he still didn't open his mouth. And that silence screamed louder than any confession ever could. I grabbed his drink off the table and hurled it at the wall. Glass everywhere. "Get the F*** out of my house," I told him. My voice didn't even sound like mine. It was raw, torn apart, almost begging but full of rage. He stood up slow, like he was walking to his own execution, and he still couldn't look at me. Just muttered, "I'm sorry," again and slipped out the door. My wife sat there, swirling her wine like we were in some twisted soap opera. "Congratulations," she said. "You just ruined 2 relationships in one night. Maybe work on your anger issues before you start blaming everyone else." That broke me in half, because it wasn't just the cheating. It was the way she could take a knife, stab me with it, and then mock me for bleeding. I went upstairs, shaking, sat on the edge of the bed, and realized I had no idea who I'd been living with, or who I'd been calling my friend, for years. After that night, the silence in my house was louder than any screaming match could have been. I didn't even bother sleeping in the same bed. I camped out on the couch with a blanket and a knot in my stomach that wouldn't go away. She didn't come down to apologize, didn't even try to explain. The next morning, she waltzed into the kitchen like nothing happened, poured herself coffee and said, "So, are we gonna play the silent treatment game now?" That was her. Cunning, sarcastic, acting like I was the one making things dramatic. Like my best friend muttering sorry in my living room wasn't the loudest confession of all. But here's the thing. Once the confrontation happened, it was like a dam broke. Suddenly, cracks of truth started spilling out from other people. The first came from my buddy Jay, another guy in our group. He called me a couple days later, voice hesitant, like he didn't want to be involved but couldn't keep quiet anymore. "Look, man," he said, "I don't know how to say this, but I saw them once, at that bar near the highway. They didn't see me, but it wasn't how friends act." She had her hand on his arm, leaning in close, way too close. That was a knife straight through me, because it confirmed everything I'd been too scared to believe. Then another slip, this time from her. We were arguing, the usual round of me asking questions and her deflecting with sarcasm. At one point she said, "You act like we were sneaking around for years or something." Were, past tense. My blood ran cold. I latched onto it immediately. "So you admit it?" I asked. She backpedaled fast, rolling her eyes. "Oh my God." It was a figure of speech. "Calm down, detective." But her face betrayed her. She went pale, her lips twitching like she realized she'd slipped. And the final blow came from M's own sister. She texted me one night, out of the blue. "I don't want to get involved, but you deserve to know the truth. They were messing around. Everyone in our family knew. We told him it was wrong, but he wouldn't listen." Reading that, my hands went numb, because it wasn't just my imagination. It wasn't paranoia. I wasn't crazy. Everyone else knew, except me. And let me tell you, there's no betrayal worse than realizing you were the last one to figure out your own life was a lie. You always hear people say, "If my partner cheated, I'd leave right away." It sounds clean and simple when you say it out loud. But when it happens to you, when the betrayal comes from not just your spouse but your best friend since childhood, there's nothing clean about it. It's like your whole life gets rewritten in real time. The hardest part wasn't even the cheating itself. It was realizing I lost 2 people in one swing. My wife, the person I built a future with, and M, the guy who was practically family. Weddings, birthdays, funerals, we'd been through everything together. He knew all my secrets, all my fears, and he's the one who put the knife in my back. There was this moment, maybe a week after the blow-up, where it finally hit me. I was scrolling through old photos on my phone. Me, S, and M at the beach. Me and him on a road trip. Us 3 dressed up for Halloween. Every memory that used to make me smile suddenly felt rotten. Like every laugh had been a cover, Every inside joke between them a clue I was too blind to see. And the worst part? I couldn't even mourn them separately. Their betrayals were so tangled together that it was like one giant explosion, taking out both pillars of my life at once. No best friend to lean on. No wife to talk it out with. Just silence and emptiness. I tried confronting them both again, separately, and never fought back. He just looked hollow, guilty, and useless. Every time I tried to get him to say it, he'd mutter, "I'm sorry," like it was some broken record stuck on repeat. On the other hand, was venom in human form. Every question I asked, she twisted into an attack on me. "Oh, so now you're the victim? Maybe if you weren't so checked out, this wouldn't have happened. You think you're some perfect husband? Newsflash, you're not." It was like she wanted to burn the entire house down just so she wouldn't have to admit what she did. That's when I realized the double betrayal wasn't just about losing them. It was about losing the illusion I'd been living under. For years, I thought I was surrounded by loyalty, love, and trust. Turns out, I was surrounded by lies and smirks and silence. And once you see that truth, you can't unsee it. After the confrontation, I didn't know how to exist. I was like a ghost moving through my own life. Every morning I woke up hoping it was all a nightmare, only to remember, nope, she was still there. Was still a shadow in my mind. The anger hit first. It was raw, all-consuming, like lava burning through my chest. I wanted to yell, smash things, make them feel the tiniest fraction of what I felt. I drove around at night just to scream into my steering wheel. I punched walls, kicked doors. It didn't help. It just left bruises on me, not them. Then came the doubt. I questioned everything about myself. Was I too trusting? Too naive? Did I miss the signs for years? Was it something I did that pushed them together? Every memory, every laugh, every touch, it all twisted into suspicion. I replayed conversations, overanalyzed texts, interrogated my own recollections. The mind does this, you know. It hunts for answers even when the truth is already staring you in the face. I also needed answers from them in a sick, desperate way. I called him, begged him to tell me everything. He gave me fragments, excuses. I didn't mean for it to happen. I never wanted to hurt you. But nothing that fixed the gaping hole in my chest. I confronted us countless times, and every time she dodged, twisted, or weaponized sarcasm. Some nights I cried alone on the couch while she sat a few feet away pretending I wasn't breaking in front of her. And the isolation, that was the cruelest part. Friends drifted because it was awkward. Family didn't want to get involved, and my wife's cunning sarcasm made it impossible to be mad without looking insane. Every moment I spent around her, I had to calculate my words carefully, like walking through a minefield. I realized I was spiraling. The more I tried to confront the situation, the more it consumed me. The more I tried to cling to some sense of normalcy, the more I felt my life slipping away. And yet, somewhere in that chaos, a little voice whispered, "You can't fix this with them. You have to fix this with yourself." There comes a moment in betrayal where you realize something terrifying. You can't unsee what's been done, you can't unhear what's been said, and you can't unfeel the way your trust has been shredded. That moment hit me like a freight train one sleepless night. I was sitting in the living room, staring at the darkened TV, empty bottles around me, when I finally admitted it. I could stay here and let this poison fester, or I could make a choice. And that choice wasn't going to be easy. I thought about her, my wife, the woman I'd loved, lived with, and planned a future with. Every sarcastic comment, every sly smile she threw my way during the games, every mocking remark after the confrontation. It was all burned into my mind. Staying would mean pretending, swallowing the betrayal, and living in a house full of ghosts. Then I thought about M, my best friend, my brother, my confidant. That blank, guilt-ridden face. The one that silently admitted everything without words. Staying friends would mean acting like nothing happened, like I could trust him again. And I knew myself well enough to know I couldn't. Not ever. I realized that choosing to stay, to forgive, would be choosing a life where I was constantly on edge, constantly doubting everyone around me, constantly reliving the betrayal in my head. Choosing to leave or cut ties would hurt like hell, but it was the only way to reclaim any sense of dignity, any sense of control over my life. I also thought about the kind of man I wanted to be moving forward. Someone who tolerates betrayal? Someone who pretends like the people he trusted the most didn't stab him in the back? No, that wasn't me. That couldn't be me. That night, I made my decision. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to fight anymore. I was going to take back my life. It was terrifying, but strangely also liberating. The morning after my breaking point, I started executing the hardest thing I've ever done. Cutting ties. Not just with my wife, but with my best friend too. I started with M. I sent him a message, short, brutal, and final. Don't contact me. Don't try to explain. Don't show up. You're dead to me. No emojis, no apologies accepted. Nothing. It hurt like hell. I mean, this was the guy who knew everything about me, who was there for me through the worst nights of my life, and I just cut him out. Then came the hardest part, talking to my wife. I tried to be calm, but the venom in my voice couldn't be contained. I laid it all out. Every slip, every glance, every bit of evidence I had pieced together. I told her exactly what I knew, and when she responded with the same sarcasm and dismissive attitude, I realized something I hadn't admitted before. I didn't need her. I couldn't trust her. I didn't want to live under the constant knife of her cunning cruelty. I packed my things. I left the house. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I didn't even look back. It felt like ripping a bandage off a wound that had been festering for years. Painful, bloody, but necessary. Over the next few weeks, I blocked both of them on every platform, deleted their contacts, removed them from every social circle I could, every mutual friend, every hangout. I started reclaiming my space. It was brutal. It was lonely. But every time I felt the sting of loss, I reminded myself, this wasn't just about cheating. This was about survival, about protecting myself from people who had shown me their true colors. It was one of the hardest decisions of my life. But the second I fully embraced it, a tiny sense of relief started creeping in. Like I was finally reclaiming the part of myself they had been eroding for months, maybe years. And I knew it wasn't over. Healing never is. But at least I had drawn the line. At least I had said, enough. Walking away was just the first step. The real battle came afterward, in the quiet moments when the betrayal echoed the loudest. Alone in my apartment, scrolling through old photos, hearing memories replay in my mind, I realized I had lost more than two people. I had lost my sense of safety, my confidence in my judgment, my trust in the world. The first few weeks were brutal. I questioned every decision I'd made for years. Was I blind? Too trusting? Too naive? Every laugh, every inside joke, every moment with M or S became tainted in my memory. I felt like I'd been living in a house of mirrors, where everything reflected lies. But slowly, painfully, I started to rebuild. I stopped pretending I was okay. I let myself cry, scream, and feel anger without guilt. I started journaling, writing down every memory, every emotion, every flash of doubt, and every sting of betrayal. Seeing it on paper helped me untangle the knot in my chest. I also started trusting myself again. Not in the naive way where I assume everyone is honest, but in the way where I listen to my instincts, I pay attention to red flags, I value my own perception of reality. If something feels off, I investigate, not to punish, but to protect myself. I reached out to a few friends I knew I could rely on, people who hadn't been caught in the crossfire. I didn't talk much about what happened at first. I just rebuilt small connections, casual hangouts, conversations that reminded me that trust wasn't gone forever. It just had to be earned again. And slowly, the anger started to fade. Not completely. It never really goes away. But I started replacing it with clarity. A clear sense of who I am and who I will not let into my life again. It's been months now, and I'm finally at a place where I can walk past the memories without collapsing. Where I can think about my life before without it feeling like it was all a lie. Where I can smile at myself in the mirror and know that, despite being betrayed by the two people I loved most, I survived. After all of this, I've had a lot of time to think about what went wrong. Not just their choices but mine, and the dynamics that let it happen. And there are lessons I think anyone blindsided like I was could benefit from. First, trust is precious. And it's earned every single day. I trusted both my wife and my best friend completely, without question. And that trust made me blind. Not because I'm weak, but because I believed in people the way I wanted them to be, not the way they actually were. Second, be alert to patterns. The slips, the glances, the half-lies, those little things aren't coincidences. When someone constantly tries to isolate you emotionally or make you question yourself, it's a warning. Don't ignore it. I did for far too long. Third, sarcasm can be a weapon. I never realized how cutting it could be until S used it to manipulate, mock, and deflect guilt. It's not harmless banter. When it's layered over deception, it's a tool to gaslight and control. Fourth, betrayal from two directions is a whole other beast. Losing one person hurts. Losing two, especially someone you thought of as family, rips you open in a way that lingers. But it also forces you to grow, to rebuild your emotional walls stronger, and to choose carefully who gets in. Finally, healing is possible. Slow, messy, and sometimes you want to give up. But with time, self-reflection, and small steps, you start trusting yourself again. You start realizing you can survive even when the people you loved most prove unworthy. If I could give advice to anyone in a similar situation, listen to your instincts, document your feelings, confront carefully but decisively, and don't be afraid to cut ties if trust is broken beyond repair. Betrayal is painful, but it doesn't have to define you. Once I finally cut ties, a strange thing happened. The world started feeling bigger again. It was like I'd been trapped in a room with no windows for years, and now someone had finally opened the door. The air felt different. The sunlight hit my skin in a way that wasn't tainted by sarcasm or betrayal. I started reclaiming pieces of my life that had been quietly suffocating under the weight of lies. I reconnected with hobbies I had abandoned. I started working out, not to impress anyone, but just to feel my body moving, alive and free. I explored new routines, new places, new ways to be comfortable in my own skin. I also became more intentional with my friendships. I stopped letting people in blindly. I tested waters, watched actions over words, and learned to value consistency over charm. It wasn't easy. Felt like dating all over again. But for trust, not romance. And gradually I stopped thinking about them. Not completely, memories still pop up, but the emotional charge faded. I could scroll past photos without my stomach nodding. I could hear their names and not feel a spike of rage or betrayal. The weight of their deceit slowly lifted, replaced by a quiet, solid sense of self. Freedom doesn't come immediately after betrayal. It's messy, lonely, and painful. But the moment you fully let go, cut the toxic cords, and prioritize your life, it's like breathing deeply for the first time in years. And that's exactly what I did. If I could go back to the night it all came crashing down, the night I realized my wife and my best friend had betrayed me, I'd tell myself a few things. First, trust your instincts. That little voice that was nagging at me for months? I should have listened. I should have paid attention to the glances, the jokes, the sudden busyness of someone I trusted completely. Trust isn't paranoia, it's survival. Second, don't beg for explanations from people who have already shown their true colors. I wasted days, weeks, trying to extract truth from them, hoping for honesty, hoping for remorse. I should have saved that energy for myself. Third, your life doesn't end with betrayal. At the time, it felt like it did. Like the ground had been ripped out from under me. But leaving, cutting ties, rebuilding, painful as it was, gave me freedom I never knew I could have. I wish I could have believed it then. Fourth, anger and grief are not weaknesses. I spent so much time trying to hold it all in, trying to act strong in front of friends and family. But letting myself feel, letting myself rage, cry, and scream, that's what started the healing. Finally, your self-worth isn't tied to them. I tell myself that being cheated on, being betrayed by someone I loved deeply and someone I trusted blindly, doesn't define me. My choices after the betrayal do. Choosing to protect myself, to cut toxic ties, to reclaim my life. that's the moment you become unbreakable. I would tell myself, it's gonna hurt like hell, it's gonna be lonely, but you will get through this. And when you do, you'll be stronger, sharper, and finally free. Looking back now, months after the dust settled, I can finally see the full picture. Betrayal isn't just about the act. It's about the fracture it leaves behind, the way it forces you to question everything you thought you knew about people and about yourself. Losing my wife and my best friend felt like losing my world, but it also forced me to build a new one. I learned that trust is sacred and fragile. It's not something to give blindly, no matter how much you love someone. But I also learned that trust can be rebuilt, starting with yourself. I can trust my instincts again, trust my judgment, and trust that I deserve honesty, loyalty, and respect. I learned that some people are incapable of loyalty, and that's not your fault. S was cunning and sarcastic. M was guilty but silent. Both chose themselves over me. Their betrayal was about them, not about my worth. Accepting that was hard, but it was freeing. And finally, I learned that betrayal can be a catalyst, painful as it is. It can strip away illusions, expose weaknesses, and leave scars. But it can also teach resilience, self-respect, and the courage to walk away from what's toxic. If you're reading this because you've been blindsided, here's my advice. Confront carefully, protect yourself fiercely, and don't be afraid to cut ties. Healing takes time, but freedom and clarity are worth every painful step. Betrayal can break you, but it can also be the push that makes you unbreakable. For me, life is starting over. Slowly, painfully, but honestly. And for the first time in years, I feel like it's mine again.